New York, the entertainment capital of the world, the place where dreams come true. 20 years ago, a young singer from Midland, Michigan came here following her dream. She was Nancy Lamott.
Listen to my song, listen to it soar. I've waited all my life for this one moment. I'm not waiting anymore. Listen to my heart as it cries for all the years that it was lonely. Listen to my...
Nancy was everything I thought music should be.
She once told me that sometimes she would select songs just because of one word or one sentence in the lyric.
She could write charts if she wanted to. She could play other instruments.
And she just became the best cabaret singer that I ever heard.
Listen to my voice and it will tell you everything, all about the life that's just about to start. For if you want to know how much I love you, listen to my heart. Listen to my heart. Listen to my
The unforgettable sound of Nancy Lamott. Midland Zone. It's 15 minutes after 7 o'clock, and look at our mid-Michigan weather forecast. Mostly cloudy skies today with a chance of a few flurries, expecting an afternoon.
We grew up in the outskirts of Midland, out in Bullock Creek area, so it was a rural setting. We had friends, we played, rode bicycles, did everything the kids do. What was different is that our father had a band.
We didn't have a name, actually. It went under Jack Lamott. We did a radio show from Brown Derby, which was on Eastman Road. It happened to be the only place that served booze by the glass in Midland County.
My father's radio show was on Saturday nights. We would have a babysitter, and friends of the family would come over, and they would all leave for the job. They would go to the club, and Nancy and I would stay up. The babysitter would allow us to stay up and listen to the first set.
Nancy started singing when she was real young, 2, 3, 4 years old. And I was always bringing musicians home. I would bring the band home at 4 o'clock in the morning, and we'd have breakfast and to get the kids up, of course, and Nancy would sing for them.
Nancy was just a natural. When I first met Nancy, she was just in our chorus, and I had no idea. But when she came over to this piano and sang for me for the first time, I realized here was an instrument that was very unusually good.
Making music in their dad's band brought Nancy and Brett some recognition in Midland County. It also helped them through the emotional times surrounding their parents' divorce and their dad's remarriage. Behind these scenes of family change was Nancy's personal struggle with her chronic illness.
Nancy started her health problems when she was, 6 months to a year old. She was allergic to everything but lamb. I ate so much lamb, I couldn't look a lamb in the face. Then they found out she had this Crohn's disease.
She was always very sick. Now, the great thing was that if she had a performance and she was sick with Crohn's, it would be a great performance. And that goes back to, our father's band and stuff. You did everything for the show. You put everything into it. And And the sicker she was, the better she performed.
I'd like to lose our time again and look for trees to climb again, recite a little rhyme again, and dream a reckless dream. For someone I'd exiled in me awoke today and smiled in me. I need to find the child in me again. Oh, I know.
Very luckily, we found a piece of paper that Nancy had written at 15 years old, kind of like an autobiography, about her talent and her musical career so far here in Midland. And even at that time, she was hell-bent on leaving Midland and going to pursue that dream.
Midland, Michigan's a very good place to start a trip. That was a rotten thing to say. No, it was just that it was time for me to go. In fact, there was this store, this big, huge furniture and appliance store called Godwin's. And they had this big neon sign on Saginaw Road. It said Godwin's. And then for a while it was Godden's. And then it was just God. If you were looking for God, he was on Saginaw Road. But the day that I left Midland, it said go.
An omen?
Yes.
And you did?
I did. I went to San Francisco.
And what did you find?
Cabaret.
Come on along, let me take you by the hand. Up to the man who's the leader of the band. And if you want to hear that Swanee River played in ragtime, come on here, Alexander's ragtime band. Now, dearie, don't be late.
Her thought was that if she went to one of the smaller cities of the big cities, then it would be a good chance to get a start. It would be it's better to make it in a small pond, you know, be the big fish in the small pond.
But steady work in Bay Area clubs was not easy to find.
I went to work for Pitney Bowes. I used to sit at my desk, and I would go, I'm gonna quit all of this and go into show business.
Her roommate, Robin, at the time, moved out here with her. And one day Robin kicked Nancy out of the house and said, if you came out here to sing, if you don't get out of the house, I'm not letting you back in until you sing.
Sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're sad, but the world goes round. Sometimes you lose every nickel you had, but the world...
I ended up in San Francisco because I was on vacation from a road band, and she said, you've got to come here. And she put me to work right away. We worked just piano and drums behind her. But, you know, we were working in small clubs. There were places like Chez Jacques, which is no longer there, Fanny's and the QT.
Somebody loses and somebody wins. One day it's kicks, then it's kicks in the shins. But the planet spins and the world goes around and round and around and around and around.
Nancy gave me this picture, and you know, this was her Liza Minnelli period, where her hair had to be like Liza, she had to wear pants like Liza, and I said, look, Nan, be yourself. You've got something that's really special. Be truthful to yourself.
In time, Nancy began to find her own voice through the songs of new composers. But still, paying the rent was a challenge.
Before you
Nancy didn't have a lot of money. She never had a lot of money. I remember staying at her apartment with the bare light bulb down the hall, and it was a scary neighborhood and whatever. She never had money at all. But what she did was that she had this amazing talent, but she had more than that talent. She had a heart where she would give back, and she gave back to the community.
Nancy's charm, wit, and compassion for others engaged all who met her.
How long were you in San Francisco?
4 years. And then I got an offer to go to Provincetown to work. And I thought, well, you know, gee, I'm practically in New York. And in San Francisco, everybody talked about going to New York, but nobody ever really did it.
Bernard Jay, who represented the fabulous Divine, booked Nancy's first club dates in New York. Apparently, their disagreements over Nancy's wardrobe and stage presence persuaded Mr. J to devote his full attention to the career of Ms. Devine. Nancy had to fend for herself.
It's hard to find fresh songs when you first move here. I mean, the first song I sang when I moved to New York was New York, New York. I mean, I didn't know, so.
This is a song about my first year in New York City. There's a lot of tension in this town, I know it's building up inside of me. I got all the symptoms and the side effects of city life anxiety. I could never understand why the urban attitude is so superior. In a world of high-rise ambition, most people's motives are ulterior. Oh, sometimes I feel as though I'm running on ice, paying the price too long. Kinda get the feeling that I'm running on ice. Where did my life go wrong? I'm a cosmopolitan, sophisticate of culture and intelligence.
Nancy quickly became a rising star in the New York cabaret scene.
When we first came to New York, we didn't know much about this business. Cabaret was a movie with Liza Minnelli and Joel Grey, and a week later we had a room open. It was a little scary.
First thing that we really worry about is quality. If someone's in the room and they absolutely shouldn't be on stage, it's embarrassing. And you hope and pray for somebody like Nancy Lamott to walk through the doors and say, I want to do my show here.
We just kind of really hit it off, and they offered me a night a week at the Duplex for as long as I wanted to be there. And it was a great place for me to be. One of the reasons for that is because I was poor. I was just as poor as a church mouse, and I couldn't afford to go anywhere. And the policy that they had there was that if you wanted to see another performer, you could see them for free.
Playing in a cabaret is a very intimate experience. It's intimate because I feel like I'm in my bedroom or my living room. I'm so close to the people, and it's a communication that's very different from being in a big theater. Every syllable is heard.
Each person has a different kind of act in cabaret, and it's maybe they tell the story of their life, or they tell about dreams that came true, or whatever it is. They're building up a thing with the audience so that you feel rapport. You care about them.
I'm so glad you like that. No, really, because my mom and my sister are here tonight, and I would really appreciate it if the response could be, like, really extreme. You know, all these years I've sent home for money. I just wanted to think it was worthwhile. Dear Mom, please send me $200. I'm only 30.
She could keep you going for 10 minutes without singing. But you listened because she was funny.
And then she started to sing, and it was kind of one of those voices of an angel. I mean, just an amazing voice.
Another Mr. Right left, they always run away. Another Mr. Right left, he took the sun away. And now there's only night left for me. It's once again goodbye time. I wasn't born to win. And once again it's my time to take it on the chin. It's stranded high and dry time for me.
She did a full-length show at a club called Don't Tell Mama, and I was the cocktail waitress. So I stood in the back of the room with my rag in my hand, and I watched this girl, and I thought, oh, she's very good. And then she did some little diva moment, and she gave me goosebumps, and I thought, okay, she gives me goosebumps. I'm a singer, too, and I'm very good, and I give goosebumps, and it was hard for me to continue to listen to her. And then finally, at the end of the show, I thought, she's excellent. What am I going to do? So I thought she was terrific. I kind of lightened up about it. She heard me sing as the months went on, and I realized that she was never, ever jealous of me, which really made me angry. Actually, as the years rolled out and we became friends, I realized that Nancy was never jealous of anybody.
In fact, Nancy easily befriended other singers and songwriters, becoming their advocate and biggest fan. But only those who spent time with Nancy, away from the stage lights, realized how much she suffered from Crohn's disease and the side effects of medication.
I lived around the corner from her. So she came to my house to do laundry and to hang out. We did tea every day for about 9 hours a day. We make a cup of tea and we just keep making cups of tea throughout the day.
She'd keep
and we do
in
laundry.
sugar.
But she was on massive amounts of prednisone for the pains in her joints and for the inflammations that she was experiencing. Walking around the corner was heavy duty for Nancy. So she was in pain. To go up the back steps of the duplex to get on stage was probably pure hell for her. But she did it. And she always walked on stage with a smile.
The first time I met Nancy Lamott, I was working in a nightclub. She was listening to me sing a song. So after I was finished, she said, "What song is that?" And I said, "Well, it's called In Passing Years." And, you know, she said, "Who wrote that?" And I said, "I did." And she said, "Well, I'm a singer, and I would love to sing that song." And I said, "No." Well, even though we had met and I was playing for her, you know, on and off, actually how I really landed the job of musical directing her and playing for her was her old musical director actually forgot to show up for a show at the duplex. Forgot to show up for a show. So that's how you get in sometimes.
Ask me again, who's the one I've begun to adore? Ask me again, who's the partner my heart clamors for? Who is the who has me tied in a bow knot, so that I know not just where I'm at?
She knew all the standards. She sang them with her dad in the dance band in Midland, Michigan. And so by the time she moved to New York, she was interested in people like me because I was a new songwriter writing new pop tunes.
Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. I'm in the mood, we're in the mood. Preach, could you marry us, forever us? I do believe we got it down, 'cause it's the second time around. And if life's a game, the first match was a disaster. Oh, but the new age of love is upon us. That's what we're after.
And then what she taught me was the old songs, like My Foolish Heart and Blame It on My Youth. And I didn't even like them very much at the beginning, but she had a way of just sitting in a room without any accompaniment and singing a cappella to you, and she would look in your eye. It drove me crazy at the time, but I remember it now. It makes me smile.
I first heard Nancy when I stumbled into a little piano bar on Columbus Avenue, and I heard this amazing voice, and I looked up, and there, perched on top of the piano, was this chubby brunette belting her heart out. And so during the break, I introduced myself to her, and when I told her I was a songwriter, I noticed this little reflexive shudder. I think she had been hit upon by every songwriter in the world, immediately saying, "Would you do my demos?" But we became friends first, and she became my muse. Pretty much every song I wrote, she would do a demo of it or sing it in her cabaret act or in concert.
When I'm wrong, I don't want to be a flute, just a slide and wah-wah mute. slide trombone. It makes me crazy when I hear them play. Oh God, it really takes my breath away. It seemed I would do anything to keep trombones at hand. I even turned the pages for a mariachi band, where I met a trombonist who'd been through what I'd been through. He said, I never met a lady hornier than you. Now I watch him play his slide trombone.
She was delightfully funny, and I just fell madly for her and introduced myself to her at the end of the set, and I said, you know, I work with entertainers, I work with cabaret singers, I love your kind of music. So after I met Nancy and I started to work with her and befriend her, it became clear that recording was something that she needed to do. And in tandem with my desire to have some of my other clients showcased on a recording, I decided that I would produce an album myself of Johnny Mercer music called Mostly Mercer. And it was a great joy to work with Nancy. We talked about what she would want to sing, and she suggested You Must Have Been a Beautiful Baby, because it was the first song that she remembers her father teaching her as a little girl.
Drove the little girls absolutely wild.
Nancy was so excited about the album and wanted it to be heard that she would go to record stores, actually, and she would speak to the buyer, and she would show them the album and start listing all the names on the album, and actually make the buyer stock several pieces of it just to see if it would sell. And when she would do cabaret acts, she would hawk it from the stage. She was shameless in trying to make that happen, and sell it from the back of the club, in fact.
Yes, you'll get to listen to many of the Mercer songs that you know and love, sung by stars. Stars like Rosemary Clooney, Nancy Lamott, Edie Gourmet, Nancy Lamott, Phoebe Hines, Nancy Lamott, Kay Ballard, Nancy Lamott.
Nancy and I met in '81, and I just moved from DC, and I was just out of school, so I was thinking Chopin and Mozart, you know, except, you know, a little Hello Dolly in there underneath and a little Ravel, and she blew my mind. She was pretty different. And then I did a Sondheim arrangement for her in '83. And that was probably our first time of putting stuff together, putting music together. She knew that she needed some manual dexterity. She also knew she needed someone who was available. And I was very young and very available. And then about '85, she had some gigs, so I started filling in for '84, '85. I was filling in.
With love. And there's no
I think the real turning point was when we got our first gig in Atlantic City. And then we were there off and on for about 4 years. And it was a real workshop for us. Nancy was very clear about her punctuation. She was so clear about the inner scenario of a song.
She couldn't tell me what to come up with, but she knew pretty quickly if it was something that she liked. It was so crystalline in her head.
Well, Nancy Lamott was sort of in the air in the 80s in New York. I mean, everybody sort of knew her, and she was considered like the iron voice, this great singer. And I was sort of moving into being a writer. I had been a music director on Broadway, but I really wrote in secret and stuff like that, and was just starting to really write a lot. But I started going to all her shows, and just, it was a strange thing. It was like you'd go and you go, my God, this is an unbelievable singer. I just walked up to her and said, you should be recording.
And I said, great, you want to put up the money? And he said, yes. And I didn't believe him.
And Scott Barnes happened to run into her about 6 months later and said, you know...
David Friedman means it when he says that he would produce you. He doesn't make offers that he doesn't mean. You should call him back. And evidently that's what spurred her to call a couple friends and say, what do you think, should I do this? And she called Dave, and then they made the first album.
This time, Nancy's voice was on every track. Beautiful Baby was her recording debut.
To learn how much I care. How many mornings must I reach for you and find that you're not there? I want so much for us to try again, 'cause we could have made a go of romance, but we never had the chance to talk enough, to love enough, to grow enough together. Why don't we run away where no one...
Oh, I'm so glad I'm here.
Glad to have you here.
Oh, thanks. Wow. What's that line that Bette Midler has in a new movie? All alone with hundreds of men? And women, I hope. Where are you, girls? You raised your hand, and you have a beard. I don't know. Oh, honey, I don't care. Whatever you want to do.
A cabaret singer would be a fool not to love her gay audience because while Nancy was certainly not gay herself, at a certain level, especially at the beginning level, that's where your audience is in these big cities.
Really, it's the place where she found artistic acceptance. It's the place where she could go sing, and people would be quiet and listen. She hated singing in front of people dancing. She hated singing around slot machines jingling. She wanted to be in a dark room where everyone was listening to the story she had to tell, and she found that acceptance through the gay community. You know, I used to always say, I logged more hours in a gay bar than any straight man in New York.
For a cabaret artist in this community, for a very long time in a career, generally you play to friends. She played for week after week at Don't Tell Mama, at 88's, both of which are great venues run by terrific people and with a lot of our friends from the community. But, you know, how does one pull ahead of the rest, as it were?
We had this belief in Nancy's talent. And we knew that, I always said, to hear Nancy is to buy Nancy.
Here's a performance of that old black magic that gets to the heart of the matter, the soul of the song. To be honest, I never paid much attention to the song, did you? Until Nancy Lamott's record came my way.
That old black magic has me in its spell. That old black magic that you weave so well. Those icy fingers up and down my spine. That same old witchcraft when your eyes meet mine. The same old tingle that I feel inside.
If you listen to Old Black Magic, Nancy and I went for the bottom in a lot of songs. We have our several Fatal Attraction medleys, and we have, you know, the darkest version of romantic love. We would go there. Combined with the aloneness that we knew, our sense of isolation, we would go right there.
Stay away, but what can I do? I hear your name such a burning desire that only your kiss can put out the fire.
Nancy never tried to overcome Cole Porter or Harold Arlen or Johnny Mercer or anyone. She just passed their work through the prism of her interpretation. And for me, as a listener, it came out, first of all, beautifully and honestly and so musically that it took the breath away.
She seemed to be a very happy girl, but underneath it all, here was a girl going into womanhood, singing her heart out, having great success, but the need for love. She didn't have any one guy.
You know, when the only thing that really rings your bells is to be in front of that audience and with those bright lights on you, then the rest of life is many times sort of waiting to get there. And there's an awful lot of waiting because there's only so much of the time that you can actually be performing.
Nancy and I became best friends, and it was never so much centered around her career, or her career up and downs, so we transcended that. And because of the way she felt most of the time, it wasn't a relationship based on physical requirements and needs. And we really settled into a rhythm of Nancy and I becoming best friends. And that's what lasted. I mean, that always lasted. It never stopped.
Nancy was having some physical problems that were very, very similar to something my sister had gone through, which was severe ulcerative colitis. So my sister and Nancy formed a bond that I just sort of became a part of because I was, you know, there. And then more and more, I just started loving her voice, and every time I heard it, it would move me.
As sick as Nancy was most of the time, her eagerness to help others was unstoppable.
More and more of her friends became ill, and she lost a lot of friends during the AIDS crisis that hit full scale in New York in the mid-'80s. And I think her philosophy of life saw a lot of those people through the last few years they had, and it really, I think that's what drew a lot of people to her. She really had this positive aura.
It never will come true. Life has its own ideas of how things come about, and if you just hang in there, life is gonna work it out. Help is on the way from places you don't know about today.
What was great about Nan was what she and Chris were doing was recognized finally through Jonathan Schwartz, through certainly when Stephen Holden started to write about her in the Times, when she started to do the major rooms, the Algonquin, the Chestnut Room. That's when people started to notice. It was an amazing thing because when we moved into being at Tavern on the Green, I can still remember when we looked around the room one time and we went, my God, we don't know anybody here.
With a pedal, I love to meddle, not only music from Broadway. It's so exciting, it's so inviting.
New faces and standing room only shows were a sign that their hard work was paying off.
Scott Barnes is my manager. He called me up and he said, "Are you available to sing at the White House tomorrow night?" Just like that. And I said, "The White House?" He said, "Yeah, the White House." Bill Clinton's White House? Yeah. Uh-huh, yeah, sure.
The only time I know that she was intensely nervous was at the White House. She was flipped out by that.
We made up this quick program. She sang Listen to My Heart. I know she sang Bill also. And, you know, which she sang more beautifully than anybody. It's a song from Showboat.
I really calmed down when I met the staff there. They were just incredible. Very much like the president himself, who is one of the nicest men I've ever met. Just absolutely genuine. Whenever I was really nervous, I just looked at him. And he was just sitting there, smiling, beaming.
She said to one of the White House aides, "Is it okay to wink at the president?" And the person said, "This president?" "Yeah, it's okay." So in the middle of Bill, she gave him a big old wink, and he was sitting there holding Mrs. Clinton's hand in the front row, and it was very sweet.
In my short list of really great dreams, that was one of them, and he couldn't have been nicer. I think he hugged me about 4 times.
How do you get invited to sing at the White House?
Well, actually, the first time was a fluke. Somebody couldn't do it. At the last minute, they called up a friend of mine and said we would like to have entertainment on tomorrow at the White House, and we faxed all the things down to them, and they said, oh yeah, she'll do. And so we went to the White House, just sight unseen, really.
And this
That's
last
how show
time,
business is, though. And this last time, it was at the request of the president.
Nancy's trips back home were infrequent, but always special.
When Nancy came back to town, oh my, people came out and they just loved every single song she sang.
That would have been Nancy's first concert here at the Center for the Arts. It worked out beautifully because it was in conjunction with her stepsister Shelley's wedding. So she had the performance at the center and was able to sing at Shelley's wedding.
On another occasion, her dad came out of retirement and joined the band while Nancy sang her childhood favorite, Beautiful Baby. Nancy's voice did more than just entertain the hometown crowd.
Midland's not a big city, so almost everybody here has had some personal experience with United Way or one of its agencies. It's really the heart of our community service efforts. So when I was asked to be the chairman for the 1996 fund drive, I was honored and pleased to do that. And then John and I started talking about the theme for the campaign.
Nancy's sister Shelley has been an active United Way volunteer and suggested that we consider using Nancy's music to support United Way services in her hometown.
We can take care of each other. We can remember that deep down inside we all need the same thing. And maybe we'll find if we are there for each other, that together we'll weather whatever tomorrow may bring.
I didn't know Nancy personally, but like most everybody in town, I'd followed her career and had interest in that. And as soon as I heard the music and lyrics to We Can Be Kind, I knew we had what we needed. It was like, what did I do to deserve this good fortune?
If not good fortune, then seemingly good health followed Nancy's colostomy operation. With newfound energy, the pace of her work increased dramatically.
Nancy called me up and asked if I'd do a duet with her on her album, and I said, God, I'd love to. I'd be thrilled to. And I said, what should we sing? And she said, well, I have an idea. I'd like to do Baby It's Cold Outside, but reverse the roles. And I thought that was a cute idea.
I ought to say no, 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 sir. At least I'm gonna say that I tried. What's the sense of hurting my pride? I really can't stay. Baby, don't hold out. Baby, but it's cold outside.
Nancy was such a wonderful musician. She had an innate musicianship that was unusual. That's why composers and songwriters loved her so much, because Michel Legrand recognized her musicianship. Alan and Marilyn Bergman knew what she could do with a lyric.
Where do you start? How do you separate the present from the past? How do you deal with all the things you thought would last that didn't last? With bits of memory scattered here and there, I look around.
The marvelous thing about singers who have that sound is that you know who they are the minute they sing 2 or 4 bars. Sinatra or Streisand, you know, or Tony Bennett, or people like, you know, as soon as they open their mouths, who they are and who's singing. And Nancy had that quality.
That intertwined, so many habits that we'll have to break, and yesterdays we'll have to take apart. One day there'll be a song or something in the air again to catch me by surprise, and you'll be there again. A moment in what might have been. Where do
we had the great privilege of introducing Nancy to the music community and the film community of Los Angeles when there was an evening for us here a couple of years ago, I guess, and we were asked who we would like to sing that night, and one of the people we really wanted was Nancy Lamott, and she was unknown to the people out here, and she was a great success that night. I mean, everybody felt like they had discovered her, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, it's a tough audience out here. Pretty cool and cold, and she warmed the room up. The first 8 bars, the people were just, they understood it. They got it. They got it, yeah.
We always went to see Nancy when she performed at Tavern on the Green or the Algonquin on a weeknight. And that night she had made a point of asking us to come to the late show and told us that to plan on sticking around afterwards. So she could have dinner. You know, when you perform at a place like Tavern on the Green, you get a free dinner. That's part of the deal. And she appreciated that because Tavern had a very good chef. So we went. It was a small house. She performed, and there was something wrong. We could tell there was something wrong in the performance. It was, she was, I won't say overwrought, but you could tell that she was driving fairly close to the edge. And I don't know what we thought it was. We knew there was something wrong.
Probably guy trouble knowing Nancy.
Right.
But then afterwards, she came out, she plopped down at the table and she said, "Hey guys, I have cancer."
I couldn't believe it. I said, my God, you better get in there and get this taken care of now. And she goes, no, they say that, you know, it's really not something we have to do right away.
The diagnosis of uterine cancer didn't stop Nancy. There was too much going on. A new album was in the works and high-paying performances in New York and California. With the aid of a psychic healer, Nancy felt she could postpone her needed hysterectomy until the fall.
She did numerous benefits, numerous AIDS benefits. Our benefit in particular, we do a show called Help Is on the Way, which is in San Francisco and the largest musical variety show. And this was our first show in 1995. And Nancy came out to do the show. We didn't even know she had cancer. However, the one thing that I remember about Nancy is she was standing out in the street, and she was standing on a big hill in San Francisco, a big old street. I mean, it was like this. And she's standing there, and she's like a child. She's standing there teetering back and forth on the side of this hill with this beautiful look on her face of peace and just kidding around and playing. And she was out there for 5 minutes. I was just watching her, and all of a sudden she looked at me, and she looked into my eyes, and I looked into her eyes, and I knew that she was at peace. And little did I know that she had cancer. She really had a lot of courage.
Mm-hmm. That was a special trip for her, too, because that's the time when she met Peter.
I was doing a play in San Francisco called Angels in America. I was playing Roy Cohn, sitting in the dressing room. And one of the cast members told me that a friend of his was coming to the show that night. She was a singer. And he let me listen to some of her music. And I was immediately captured by her voice, pure and clean. It drove straight to the center of me. I was raving about the music. He said, "Would you like to meet her?" I said, "Sure, I would." Everything I heard coming out of her mouth, I liked. Just what she valued. She had a sensitivity to other people. And she had this remarkable ability to make you feel good about yourself. And the more I listened to her talk, the more I just was getting drawn to her.
Returning to her New York performances, Nancy and Peter's courtship continued through long-distance phone calls.
Any time or place, I close my eyes and see your face, and I'm embracing.
She was ready for that, just as she knew she was going to make the album with orchestra, Listen to My Heart, the first time she'd ever recorded with an orchestra, and that was a very big deal. She was ready for that. She was going to get that right, and when the man came along, she was ready for that too.
Nancy was a very big fan of Barbra Streisand. She used to sit and listen to her albums over and over and over and over again when she was a kid. That's what Nancy told me. And Peter Matz was kind of, for her, the master of the old Streisand recordings behind the master. And he was kind of like an idol for her. And that's why when she realized that she was going to be able to make an album with this man, it was an absolute thrill for her.
Nancy had this really unusual, incredible relationship with Chris Marlowe. It was the kind of thing that happens sometimes with an accompanist and a performer where they breathe together. They each knows exactly where the other is going musically all the time. And it's very exciting to see that chemistry working. So when I was brought in to orchestrate Listen to My Heart, the material, that is the structure of each song, that had already been worked out by Chris and Nancy together. I think probably the biggest challenge was to stay out of the way, to add some orchestra warmth and some color, but not to intrude on what was there.
I hear your key in the door, unlocking more than wood. The ceiling may not be dry yet, but it feels like home. Yes, we have come from a long way. Friends say wrong way. Still, I only know when you hold me, it feels like home.
It's great. It's a thrill. You know, to turn on the radio and hear yourself, it's, there's nothing to compare with it, you know. I mean, I listen to WQEW a lot, and Jonathan Schwartz is just my favorite, you know. So I turn on QEW and I listen, and he plays me every day, and it's so great. In fact,
Between Barbra Streisand and Frank Sinatra, there you are.
yeah, there I are.
There was a Sinatra festival at Carnegie Hall, 3 nights of tribute to Sinatra. And I was active in a casting kind of way, as well as the master of ceremonies for these occasions.
Nancy was on 2 nights. That was a real tribute to her. I mean, with all these other huge stars.
We were both there for the Sinatra tribute, and that was the night we met Pete. We were sitting in house seats, and she had contrived it, hadn't she, that we would sit next to him.
Absolutely, and I was given orders to watch his reaction to every note.
And people came out with big bands and all this fanfare, and she and Chris just came out, piano, her, and made Carnegie Hall like a little club.
She could fill a room with her voice, but she could stand on a stage and fill the room without opening her mouth. That's another gift that she had.
But the true gift of health eluded her. The chemotherapy was not working.
I think she just felt like her health could just sort of wait. And when you hear this album now, Listen to My Heart, you can't even believe that it was a woman who was so ill. And after that, she had the surgery. I think the day after she finished the album, she had the surgery, and it was too late. And that's when we became more than just friends. She started coming to, I think we bonded when we went over to get the wigs. And I got her 2 because I just said, well, you know, you might be in a different mood the next day. You might want it to look a little different.
The night when you first were there, in love with my joy delirious, when I knew that you could care. So taunt me, hurt me, deceive me, desert me. I'm yours.
As Nancy always did, we had the Food Channel on the TV because it was our background music. And we were in pajamas just sort of spending the weekend, I think, together after a chemo session. And one day she just started talking. I'm much more of a talker than she is, but she went for it. And I think for 5 hours straight, she talked about everything.
The next day, her nose began to bleed again. Nancy went to the hospital.
We went down the corridor of the intensive care ward, and that door was closed, and I stood in front of it. And I remember repeating to myself a Latin tag, I am a man and nothing human is alien to me. And that gave me the courage to go through the door. And there she was, lying there, full of tubes. Her mouth was a brown scab. She was conscious, her eyes were open. She couldn't talk. It was all she could do to breathe. Her parents were there. Pete said to me, tell her you love her.
I had heard Nancy speak of Peter on many occasions on the phone. That was the first time we had met him.
Pete was concerned about asking her to make her own life decisions, and he said, do you want us to help you with the pain while, you know, it's happening, or do you want to fight? That's what he said, do you want to fight? And she said, am I going down? And he hesitated a moment, and those of us in the hallway, I know I was thinking, oh, answer her. Oh, tell it to her straight.
And he told her what the situation was and asked what she wanted. And she said, I want them to make me comfortable, but I want you to marry me first.
So people started scurrying around trying to find rings and trying to find Father Harris and Nancy. So I said, does somebody have his number? And Nancy said, here. And she asked for this Kleenex box and wrote down Scott's number and said, he has Father Harris's number. And we called, got paged Father Harris.
There's a couple of nurses, a handful of friends. Her old boyfriend was the best man. Pete played one of her songs on a tape recorder, got in the hospital bed with her.
And he leaned over to her and said, Nance, now I'm going to do that thing you really hate.
And then he sang along with it. And of course, everybody in that room was crying. Then they exchanged the vows.
Baby, you'll be okay. I'll keep you from harm. And tomorrow, if trouble should come, you can count.
She did everything she wanted. I mean, there were other things she still had to do, but she was incredible in that she sort of laid all this stuff out and she did it. She just went ahead and did it. She was great.
Even in her final moments, she wasn't bitter, she wasn't angry, she wasn't anything but grateful that she knew before she died that she could have made it. She was making it. It was happening.
And I held her, the last thing I said to her, I said, Nance, when I get to heaven, will you teach me how to sing? And she went. And I know she will. I miss her a lot.
Don't be afraid. Oh, I love to stop right beside an upright or a high tone, baby.
Don't go away. Next, the 92nd Street Y presents the Tokyo String Quartet here on WLIW 21.
Like my mother sang to me, one with good old-fashioned harmony. Play a simple melody. Musical demon, such a honey a dream, and won't you play me some rag? Just change that classical nag to some sweet, beautiful drag. If you will play from a copy of a tune that is choppy, you'll win all my applause. And that is simply because I want to